So fellas, this week we have the final UFC card, not just of the year, but for 6 whole weeks. We've got 6 weeks, which is the longest break, I think, since the pandemic with no UFC cards. And we're having Royval and Kape, which, to be fair, is actually a pretty good Apex main event, and I think the entire card isn't that bad for an Apex card. I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10. An average fight in that card, I'd say it's above average for an Apex card, though one of the better ones we've had this year. Some decent names and decent scraps. And also, Bobby Green's going to be on this card, but obviously I haven't predicted his fight because at the time of recording this, I don't know who he's going to be fighting, but Bobby Green will be on this card. But yeah, it's a solid Apex card, decent fights, potential, I don't want to say eliminator in the main event, but whoever wins the main event is probably going to be in like an eliminator for the flyweight title fight, but for the flyweight belt. But we'll start off with the first fight. Frye versus Guilherme. Probably the most Apex fight you could have come up with. 2 heavyweights from the regional scene, 2 undefeated heavyweights. Didn't even come from the contender series. Like I said, probably the most Apex fight he could make. Frye, he used to be a college basketball player, came over to MMA and he's finished everybody so far. He's got a 100% KO rate, being a champion on the regional scene. As he takes on Guilherme, who has had 5 fights in his MMA career, finished 4 of them, and that is literally all there is to talk about. There's not really much, there's not really too much to talk about. Neither of them have come from the contender series. They've not really got unique styles. 2 heavyweights from the regional scene. Maybe one of them can be something in this division. I'm going to go with Frye by KO in the first round because he's got a better last name. He's 6-0. He's finished every single one of his fights. Guys, it's heavyweight MMA. They've both finished a decent chunk of guys in the regional scene. I'm going to go with Frye to win this one. There is no breakdown. It is a coin flip. Heavyweight MMA from the regional scene. I'm going to go with Frye by KO. He's finished everybody he's fought. He's undefeated. He's been a champion. He's got the better last name. And Guilherme, I don't know. He's just like, who is he? So I'm going to go Frye by KO in the first. Then we've got Teresa Bleda versus Jamey Lyn-Horth. Again, another Apex level fight. Now, Teresa Bleda, she went undefeated on the regional scene in Octagon, becoming an Octagon champion. She then comes from the contender series, getting a decision win on the contender series, and then she got finished by Natalia Silva in her UFC debut, but picked up one of her Gabriela Fernandez in 2023, and she's been out since June of 2023. As she takes on Jamey Lyn-Horth, who had a decent run on the regional scene with a 100% finishing rate, becoming a champion, and so far she's gone 3-2 in the UFC every single one of her fights, being a decision. Now, Teresa Bleda, she tries spamming takedowns, but doesn't really have the gas tank to do it. I remember the fight with Natalia Silva, she kept spamming takedowns and then gassed out and got knocked out. And she's overall got quite weak stand-up, and again, she's been out since, I think, June of 2023. Nearly, 2.5 years she's been out of this sport, so I'm not expecting big runs from Bleda. Jamey Lyn-Horth, pretty good striker with good use of kicks. She's very big for the division, is Jamey Lyn-Horth as well. Good job at controlling the clinch because of it. Decent striker, good anti-grappling. I think Jamey Lyn-Horth gets a pretty comfortable decision, unanimous decision for Jamey Lyn-Horth. Teresa Bleda, she's been out since June of 2023. She beat Gabriela Fernandez, which, I mean, to be fair, Gabriela Fernandez is actually a decent win because I think that Gabriela Fernandez has been on a roll since then. But like I said, she's been out since June of 2023. And Jamey Lyn-Horth, I think, is just a style that I'm going to favour to beat Bleda. Jamey Lyn-Horth is the better stand-up fighter, very big for the division, very dynamic with her kicks. Her takedown offense wasn't that bad as well. She just fought Demopoulos, who's a pretty decent grappler. She defended most of the takedowns from Demopoulos, so I'm going to go with Jamey Lyn-Horth, gets the decision win, keeps the fight standing, picks her apart across 15 minutes, does just enough with the volume on the feet to pick up a decision. And I think Bleda might take her down once or twice, but overall, I'm not expecting massive things. I think Jamey Lyn-Horth probably gets the decision, but again, women MMA and heavyweight MMA, pretty much the same thing. Bit of a coin flip, is what it is. 2 Apex fights. And then we've got the real fights. Sharaf versus Steven Asplund. Not the best way to start off this card so far. Again, 2 very, unique heavyweights in their own right now. Sharaf, he might be the worst active fighter in the UFC. He's got 4 wins on the regional scene. He became a champion, and he got finished by Junior Tarfa in his UFC debut, and he's at the gym of Sean Strickland as well, as he trains against Steven Asplund. Steven Asplund, decent run on the regional scene. I just got a KO win in the contender series in just 16 seconds, and had a bit of a dodgy interview after the contender series as well. The style of Sharaf, he might be the worst fighter in the UFC. If you're getting finished by Junior Tarfa, there's got to be some sort of conversation about you being the worst fighter that might be, in the modern era of the UFC. He's genuinely just a big dude who throws down. If you've got any, fat friends or dudes, people who are pretty big, if any of them were to throw down in, a street fight, that is practically what Sharaf does, and he might have the worst gas tank in UFC history. To be fair, he did fight Junior Tarfa on, a short notice, but he gassed out in about, I think it was, half a round, so he might have some of the worst gas tank in the UFC. Steven Asplund, probably MMA's most unique build. He's got that saggy build, detailed, but he seems to be pretty heavy-handed, but he's not really beating anybody good. He got finished by Denzel Freeman on the regional scene, and we just saw Denzel Freeman at that UFC Qatar card a couple of weeks back, and he looked pretty bad. I mean, he got through, he got the win, but he looked pretty bad. I'm going to go with Stephen Asplund by KO in the first round, because if you're getting finished by Junior Tafa, I'm pretty sure any competent heavyweight can get the job done. Sharaf, he's a blob from the regional scene, only 4 wins, finished by Tafa, looked awful. And Stephen Asplund, at least he's actually gone through. You know, he's got a lot of finishes on the regional scene. He came from, got a KO in 16 seconds. He's a pretty heavy-handed dude in himself. His only losses to Denzel Freeman, and like I said, Freeman's in the UFC now, so it is just, again, heavyweight MMA. There's absolutely no reason why anybody should be picking Sharaf to win this fight. There's no reason why anyone should be betting on this fight, but based off what I've seen, I think Stephen Asplund's the better guy. Promotable, hits pretty hard, got to win in the Contender Series, which is obviously more, I guess, credible than any regional heavyweight fight, so I'm going to go with Stephen Asplund by KO in the first round. Club Sharaf, gets the TKO finish, and gets the job done. Then we've got Luana Santos versus Melissa Croden. I think this was scheduled for like 2 months back, and now it's been scheduled for this card. Pretty decent fight for women MMA. Now, Luana Santos, decent run of the regional scene, comes over to the UFC, wins her first 3 fights, with 2 of them being by way of finish, then takes on Casey O'Neill as a massive favourite, and loses to Casey O'Neill, and since then she's just got a good submission win in her first fight since then, as she takes on Melissa Croden. Now, Melissa Croden, again, decent run of the regional scene, also losing to Jacqueline Cavalcanti, which is quite notable, and then 1 week later, after her LFA win, she ends up taking on Lisboa just a week after, and finishes Lisboa, I think on the Canada card a couple of weeks back. So been very active this year as Melissa Croden. Now, the style of Luana Santos, she's a really good grappler, and she specifically has amazing submission game. She's definitely one of the better submission artists in this division. She's pulled off, I think it was an Americana, which is quite a unique submission as well, especially for women MMA, and she's just a very promising fighter, and if she can improve the striking, she has a ton of potential, because I'd say the biggest issue with Luana Santos is the striking. We kind of saw this in the fight with Casey O'Neill, which is not a good loss to have on your record, but overall, very good grappler, and like I said, she's still promising, she's still young. If she can improve the grappling, she's got a ton of potential. Now, Melissa Croden, she's an absolute dogfighter. On the feet, she's not the highest level striker, and any competent striker will beat her, but she has got legit, like, she just walks forward and has a dogfight. Her LFA fight was a dogfight. Her fight in her debut against Lisboa was a dogfight as well. She's fun to watch, but her bread and butter is on the ground. She's a pretty good ground fighter, pretty good ground game, and she actually looks to deal damage on the ground. Vicious ground and pound, which is how she got her finish. Or yeah, I like the style of Melissa Croden, one of the funner women MMA fighters out there, but I'm going to go with Luana Santos by decision. Yeah, I mean, Melissa Croden looked good in her debut, but this is a massive step up. Luana Santos has been ruined through pretty much everybody. She lost to Casey O'Neill, looked even better against Lisboa in a most recent fight, and I think Luana Santos is a pretty bad matchup. If the fight stays standing, unless Melissa Croden can somehow overwhelm her, I think it's Luana Santos is going to pick her apart on the feet, because, like I said, Melissa Croden's got quite a wild style. And if the fight does go to the ground, I'm going to favour Luana Santos by submission, or at least by, dominate her on the ground. Very good ground game as Luana Santos. High finishing rate for women MMA, which is something that's rare. So I think Luana Santos gets this one done. Pretty good decision win, unanimous decision win, a bit of grappling, bit of striking. Melissa Croden is probably the more dangerous fighter on the feet, but again, she's not necessarily high level. I'm going to go with Luana Santos by decision. Then we've got Cesar Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejzuk, the battle of the Cesars. Now, Cesar Almeida used to compete in Glory Kickboxing. Actually took on Alex Pereira 3 different times, going 1 and 2 against Porton back in 2013 and 2015 in kickboxing. He starts off his MMA career with 3 first-round knockouts. He then gets a good win on the Contender Series. He gets a finish in his UFC debut against Dylan Budka. He then gets wrestle-fucked by Roman Kopylov, and since then, he's picked up 2 wins with one of the best KOs this year at the beginning of the year, as he slept Abdul Razak Al Hassan in one of the most brutal out-cold knockouts of the year, and he now trains with Alex Pereira, his former rival. Now, Cezary Oleksiejzuk is the brother of Mikhail Oleksiejzuk. He's had a massive career on the regional scene and outside of the UFC, becoming a champion in local promotions down in Poland, and now he got a good finish in his debut on the Contender Series as well in about 30 seconds. So both these guys are pretty dangerous strikers, and this is again one of those fights that you look at it and you're like, this doesn't belong in the Apex, this belongs in some sort of crowd. But anyway, the style of Cesar Almeida, He's a brutal kickboxer. He's got a ton of power in his hands. We saw it earlier on this year against Al Hassan. And he's just got amazing counter-punching as well. He's got a really good job at kind of luring people in and countering with a massive shot. Very dangerous kickboxer. The biggest flaw, he's often leaving himself up. And he did nearly get finished. I think he got dropped by Al Hassan earlier on this year as well. So I think leaving himself open is the biggest flaw. And also his wrestling. Roman Kopylov is not a good wrestler. And he out-wrestled Cesar Almeida for 15 minutes. So I tell you, the biggest flaw of Cesar Almeida is the wrestling. Cesar Oleksiejzuk, a super dangerous striker with powerful hands. Yeah, the guy just goes out there, and it's kind of hard to explain it, but you can understand why he has so many finishes because he's so violent. He's got one of those styles where, you know, you look at his record and you see he's got so many finishes, then you watch him fight and you can understand how he's been able to pull off so many of them finishes. Like in his most recent fight, I think it was a takedown on the Contender Series, and he just went fucking rapid with the ground and pound and got the TKO finish. Yeah, he's got one of them styles where you can see why he's got so many finishes. But I'm going to go with Cesar Almeida by TKO in the second round. Almeida is one of the most dangerous unranked strikers in the middleweight division, and Cesar Oleksiejzuk, he looks good. He's definitely better than his brother Mikal, but let's not act like Mikal is exactly a high-level fighter, so I think Cesar Almeida knocks him out. You know, I really do rate the striking. He's now training with Poton, and since training with Poton, he's gone 2-0 in the UFC, got one of the most brutal knockouts of this year. Former Glory Kickboxing guy, beat Poton in Glory Kickboxing as well. I do rate the striking a lot of Cesar Almeida. Very dangerous, really good kickboxing. And Cesar Oleksiejzuk's also very dangerous. I can see a world where he kind of clips Cesar Almeida, but I mean, like I said, he's not fighting any high-level guys in the regional scene, and even though he's better than his brother, you know, it's not really a high bar to have to be better than Mikal Oleksiejzuk, so it should be a fun fight. Two dangerous strikers going at it, two guys with a decent background, but I think Cesar Almeida is going to knock him out. Better striker, better background, trains with better guys. I'm going to go with Cesar Almeida by TKO in the second round. Drops him with a big shot, goes to the ground and pound finish and gets the TKO. Then we've got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Bucheca. Now, Kennedy Nzechukwu went 2-0 in the regional scene before getting a chance on the Contender Series, where he got a split decision win on the Contender Series and didn't get a contract. He then gets two more finishes on the regional scene, comes back to the Contender Series where he gets a KO win, and then he gets submitted in his debut in the UFC by Paul Craig. After that, picks up 3 wins, including knocking out Carlos Ulberg and also getting another KO win over Daniel Marquez. But that win over Carlos Ulberg is still Ulberg's only loss in the UFC. It then goes 3-4 in his next couple of fights with 3 finishes and getting finished twice as well. A lot of finishes in that sequence. Then he moves up to the heavyweight division, and since moving up to heavyweight, he's gone 2-0 with 2 knockouts. But in his most recent fight, he felt the wrath of Valter Walker, and he got heel hooked by Valter Walker, another victim to the list, as he takes on Marcus Bucheca, who has a massive BJJ background. He's one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, he got some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu accolades in the UFC right now. Huge gi background in BJJ. He comes over to MMA, has a solid run in the regional scene, finishing everybody that he beat, and he also only lost to Umar Kane, who's like a big champion in 1FC. And he had a pretty embarrassing performance in his debut by Martin Badai, as he lost to Martin Badai. The style of Kennedy's a heavy-handed puncher for heavyweight, and he does carry some light heavyweight athleticism. He is one of these light heavyweights who found success in the heavyweight division, but he's still nothing crazy. A bit of power, a bit of athleticism, it's going to get him in the top 15, but he's not going to go too far. And he is just overall quite a mid-fighter, but he's also quite dangerous. He's not really good anyway the fight goes. Anybody who's semi-decent on the ground or on the feet is going to beat him, but he is dangerous. He's got power. He'll clear out a few cans every now and then. He's just a decent, I guess, gatekeeper for the heavyweight division. Marcus Bucheca, he's a BJJ mastermind. He was a great BJJ grappler, one of the best gi grapplers in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he looked awful in his debut. He had no striking, no gas tank, and he had sloppy grappling. He looked awful against Martin Badai, and we see this a lot with BJJ athletes coming over to MMA, where they look really dominant in BJJ, and then they come over to MMA and they look shit. Like, their striking's off, their gas tank is non-existent. Anybody with a decent style will be able to beat them. So for that reason, I think Kennedy's going to knock him out. Kennedy's had a lot of experience in the UFC. You've got to remember, this guy's fought a lot of guys in the light heavyweight division. I mean, the fella knocked out Carlos Ulberg, and he looks pretty good for the heavyweight division. Like, he felt the wrath of Valter Walker, but apart from that, he had 2 first-round knockouts. He's definitely more experienced than Marcus Bucheca, and if anything, I think this is a worse style than Martin Badai. I thought Martin Badai was like a favourable fight for Marcus Bucheca. I think this is worse. I know Nzechukwu has just been submitted, but he's been submitted by Valter Walker, who's arguably one of the best submission artists in this division. And I think when the fight stays standing, inevitably, Nzechukwu is going to crack him with a big shot, and I think he gets the KO win over Bucheca. Clips him with a big shot, knocks him out. I'm going to go with Kennedy by knockout. Yeah, Bucheca, He did not impress me in his debut. He looked awful against Martin Badai. Even Martin Badai was able to take him down and put him in bad positions. So I think Kennedy will clip him in the first round and knock out Bucheca. Back to BJJ you go. Then we've got Joanderson Brito versus Melsik Baghdasaryan. Really fun fight. Aggressive and violent fight for the featherweight division now. Joanderson Brito, he had a solid run in the regional scene as well, becoming a champion. He then fights Diego Lopez of all people on the Contender Series and actually beats Diego Lopez on the Contender Series, which is one of the best Asian wins in modern history. He then loses his debut in the UFC, but then picks up together a massive 5-fight winning streak, every single one of them being by way of finish, and he beat some decent names on there as well, becoming one of the best prospects in the featherweight division. And since then, he's been on a 2-fight losing streak, very close fight to William Gomez, and he got dominated by Pat Sabatini. Melsik Baghdasaryan, he came from kickboxing. He has a good kickboxing background before MMA, where he won a couple of fights. He starts off his MMA career losing his debut, but then picking up 4 straight wins with a very short average fight time, 7 seconds, 9 seconds, 14 seconds, and 32 seconds. He then gets the decision win on the Contender Series, starts off his UFC career going 2-0 with a good head kick KO, and then he faces Josh Cooleybow, pushes him at the face-off, and then gets submitted, which was quite satisfying to see. And since then, he's gone 1-1, getting finished and demolished by Gene Silva in February of this year. The style of Joanderson Brito, super aggressive kickboxer. He throws everything with a 100% and carries a lot of power. Yeah, Joanderson Brito, he's such a violent fighter to watch. Like, even when he's throwing leg kicks, he'll throw everything into every shot he throws, which is why he's had so many finishes. Just super aggressive and violent on the feet. He's also got good BJJ. He submitted what's his name? Jonathan Pierce. He defended submissions from Pat Sabatini, so he's got good BJJ, but he doesn't really do well against wrestlers. William Gomez was able to take him down. Pat Sabatini dominated him for 15 minutes, so the wrestling just seemed to be a bit of a flaw for Joanderson Brito. Man, Melsik Baghdasaryan, he's a great striker with smooth kickboxing. Overall, just a decent kickboxer. He's quite dirty in and out the octagon as well. I remember his fight with Lutz, where he had a lot of fouls in that fight, and like I said, pushing Josh Cool about the face-offs as well. He's decent, but he's also very hesitant these days. Doesn't really throw enough, in my opinion. He barely threw anything in that Gene Silva fight. So I'm going to go with Joanderson Brito by decision. I think Brito's just going to pick him apart on the feet, because Melsik doesn't throw enough, and he's facing this very rapid, dangerous striker in Joanderson Brito. And there was a time when I thought Joanderson Brito was the best prospect in the featherweight division. I think if you go back to some of my videos from like mid-2024, I think I was saying that Joanderson Brito was like the most dangerous fighter or best unranked fighter in the featherweight division. Like, this guy's got a win over Diego Lopez. He's knocked out Andre Philly, submitted Jonathan Pierce, retired Jack Shaw. Well, he didn't retire Jack Shaw, but he was his second to most recent retirement fight. But regardless, he's just such a violent guy. Joanderson Brito throws everything on the feet. In Melsik, he comes from this kickboxing background, but he's been dominated. I mean, he got submitted by Josh Cooleybow, brutalized by Gene Silva. He hasn't really got any good wins in his entire MMA career, and most of them include fouls. So I think Brito's just going to pick him apart on the feet, outblands him, picks him apart on the feet, does a lot of damage on the feet. So I think Melsik will survive, because I mean, he got finished by Gene Silva, which isn't too much shame, but he's a decent striker himself. So I think Melsik will survive, but I think we're going to see Brito blast him and get the decision win. I'm going to go 30-27 Joanderson Brito. And to be fair, it's not like Brito's losing to bums. Like, Gomez is decent, Sabatini's one of the best guys coming up in this division, so I think Brito will get this one done by decision. Then we've got Morgan Charriere versus Melquizael Costa. One of the best fights I think we could have seen in it. Like, this is going to go down as, I think, one of the best Apex fights of the year. This is one of the best unranked fights again in the featherweight division. Now, Morgan Charriere, massive career on the regional scene, huge career on the regional scene, becoming a Cage Warriors champion. Also fought Paul Hughes as well, notably, over at Cage Warriors. And so far in the UFC, he's 3-2, getting 3 good finishes, knocking out everybody in all of his wins, and not, obviously surviving both of his losses. Now, Melquizael Costa is one of the only fighters in the UFC history that have vitiligo. He also had quite a big regional scene as well, regional career as well. He starts off his UFC career going 1-2, getting finished by Thiago Moises and Steve Garcia. Since then, he's picked up a 4-fight winning streak with 2 finishes as well. A good finish over Andre Philly and Shailan, and he's actually had 3 fights this year, all within the space of like 3 months. This is going to be his 4th fight of the year against Morgan Charriere. Now, the style of Morgan Charriere, he's a very violent striker, and he throws with intent. Similar to what I was just saying about Joanderson Brito, Morgan Charriere is very dangerous. He's got 3 wins in the UFC, all by KO, and he is one of the better kind of French strikers out there. Very dangerous on the feet, heavy-handed dude, throws with intent, great body kicks, and like I said, he's got amazing kicks, powerful hands. He's just smooth and technical overall, but yeah, the kicks of Morgan Charriere to the body are on the money. And he does usually struggle against skilled volume strikers. Like, we saw that in the fight with Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood was able to beat him. He also fought some other dude, I forgot his name, where he lost with the striking as well. I forgot who he fought. But it's usually technical strikers with decent volume that he loses to. There's Morgan Charriere, but he's a very violent dude. Melquizael Costa, nasty submission game. He's got great submissions. He latched a submission over Andre Fili, I think, within like 20 seconds of them grappling. And he's got amazing BJJ, but overall quite sloppy wrestling. I remember the fight with Julian Erosa and Christian Rodriguez. The wrestling was quite sloppy in that fight. He's overall got decent volume striking with some power on the feet. I remember he dropped Andre Fili, but he isn't great on the feet. Like, he's not like a standout striker, but he's got power, and he's pretty dangerous everywhere the fight goes. This should be super good, man. Dangerous striker, dangerous grappler. Two guys who are very violent everywhere the fight goes. Two guys who've been looking sick recently. But I'm going to go with Morgan Charriere by decision. I think this should be a decent fight for Morgan Charriere. I do kind of worry about the grappling of Charriere because we saw Nathaniel Wood kind of beat him on the ground a lot, but even then, again, Nathaniel Wood's one of the best guys unranked in this division. But I'm going to go with Morgan Charriere by decision. I think Charriere will keep the fight standing. And if it is just a pure stand-up fight, I think he wins this fight with pure volume, and I think he does a lot of damage to Melquizael Costa, because we saw Melquizael Costa against Julian Erosa. No disrespect to Julian Erosa, but he's not exactly a high-level guy. He's got good grappling, quite old, and we saw Melquizael Costa arguably lose to Julian Erosa in his most recent fight. He fought Christian Rodriguez. That was a really good win, but I'm going to go with Morgan Charriere. I think the fight's going to stay standing. He's going to pick apart Melquizael Costa, rip to the body, do a lot of damage. He's going to definitely hurt him on the feet. And I think unless Melquizael Costa can take him down and find the submission, which I don't think he's going to do, he doesn't get the win here. And he's been out for, well, he's not been out for too long. He had 3 fights this year, but I'm going to go with Morgan Charriere. Gets the decision win. Just wins via striking, to be fair. He's the better striker. I think the fight will stay standing. Charriere by decision. And then we've got Amanda Lemos versus Gillian Robertson. Now, Gillian Robertson comes from a big grappling background, fought the likes of Rolls Muniz in grappling as well. Big grappling background. She starts off her MMA career going 3-2, then goes on The Ultimate Fighter, gets finished on The Ultimate Fighter. So then she gets a UFC contract anyway, and she has a pretty decent start to her UFC career, where she ends up getting 5 finished wins and 2 finished losses, but she was a bit of a win-loss fighter, but she's now had a pretty decent run since 2022, with 6 wins and only 1 loss, and 4 of those wins as well have been by at least grappling-related finishes, with a bit of ground and pound and submission game in there. Amanda Lemos starts off her MMA career pretty good, going undefeated on the regional scene, becoming a champion. Gets finished in her UFC debut, goes on another 5-fight win streak with 3 finishes in there, which was pretty good. Then gets a main event against Jessica Andrade, loses by finish to Jessica Andrade. Then gets another main event against Marina Rodriguez, finishes Marina Rodriguez, and picks up another win as well after that. And then she gets a title fight with Zhang Weili, gets absolutely dominated 50-43 by Zhang Weili in one of the most dominant performances of Zhang Weili's career. And since then, she's gone 2-2. Main evented against Virna Jandiroba and getting submitted in that fight. The style of Amanda Lemos, she's a high volume, durable striking style. Yeah, Amanda Lemos, not dangerous on the feet, but she's very high volume. She's got this kind of high volume kickboxing style on the feet, and she's got solid BJJ. She's had quite a few submissions in the UFC, but I feel like Amanda Lemos is like a really good offensive grappler, but bad defensively. She doesn't do well when she takes on other grapplers, and now she's taking on Gillian Robertson, who I think is one of the best grapplers in women MMA, and one of Canada's only chances of like a UFC title contender. She's got amazing wrestling, nasty ground and pound and submission ability. On the ground, she's a nasty fighter, is Gillian Robertson. But to be fair, she is yet to beat another grappler. You look at her record recently, the only real grappler she's fought recently has been Tabitha Ricci, and she lost. So I want to see how she does when she faces another grappler. I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson by TKO in the second round. I really do rate the grappling of Gillian Robertson. She's the kind of the saviour of Canada in women MMA right now. She's got really good ground game, really good grappling. And I think when she does take Amanda Lemos to the ground, I think she roughs her up, gets the ground and pound finish, because she has got a vicious ground and pound. And you look at all of Amanda Lemos' losses, it's all to the same thing. Suarez grappling, Jandiroba grappling, Weili grappling, Jessica Andrade grappling, and now she's taking on one of the best up-and-coming grapplers in women MMA, in Gillian Robertson. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson to win this one by TKO. I think she dominates the fight on the ground. Then we've got Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. So it should be a fucking violent fight for the Apex. Giga Chikadze comes from Glory Kickboxing, big background in kickboxing before MMA, where he had a decent career. He then starts off his MMA career pretty decently as well, with a 100% finishing rate in every single one of his wins. He then has a decent run to start off his UFC career as well, puts together a 6-fight win streak with 2 good finishes as well over Cub Swanson and Jamey Simmons. He then main events against Edson Barboza, gets a good finish over Edson Barboza. Main events against Calvin Kattar and gets absolutely battered by Calvin Kattar in one of the most one-sided beatdowns we've had in the past couple of years. And since then, he's gone 1-2, losing to Arnold Allen and David Onama in his last 2 fights. As he takes on Kevin Vallejos, who had a really good run of the regional scene as well. Massive run of the regional scene, becoming a champion. He then faces Gene Silva on the Contender Series and loses, but to be fair, he does survive against Gene Silva. He then gets 2 more finishes on the regional scene, becoming a champion again, and then gets another crack at the Contender Series, gets a KO win of the Contender Series, a KO win to kick off his UFC career, and just beat Danny Silva by decision in his most recent fight. The style of Giga Chikadze, he's a snappy kickboxer with really good kicks and decent power. Yeah, he is one of the better kind of classic kickboxers in the featherweight division. Giga Chikadze, good snappy kicks, good kickboxing and decent power, but he has definitely looked off in his last few fights. Like, when your most recent fight is Alex Caceres, you know you're doing something wrong, and he just lacks the wrestling, and he slows down throughout the fight. He is a really good one-round fighter as Giga Chikadze. I think he won the first round against Arnold Allen, but then he kind of just slows down, and like I said, he's kind of washed his Giga Chikadze. Since Calvin Kape beat the shit out of him, he's never really been the same. Kevin Vallejos, he's like the Argentinian Ilia Topuria. Like, he fights exactly like Topuria. He's this short, stocky boxer who backs you against the cage and just unloads with the hands. He's got a very similar stance to the Topuria brothers. He's just short style, short stocky style, backing you up against the cage with the boxing, and once you're against the cage, you'll unload a combination and look to knock you out. And he does look very promising as well. I mean, he had a decision with Danny Silva, but Danny Silva's not a bad fighter by any means. He's pretty solid, so yeah, they've both looked good. I'm going to go with Kevin Vallejos, bad decision though. Yeah, Giga Chikadze, I feel like he's more than washed. Like, getting battered by Calvin Kape was one thing, then he loses to Arnold Allen and gets demolished by David Onama. So I think Kevin Vallejos is going to get this one done. I think he's going to just outland Giga Chikadze, similar to what Arnold Allen did. Just keeps him against the cage like Arnold Allen did, and just unloads with the boxing, rips the combinations. I think this is going to be a fight where we really do see how good Kevin Vallejos is though, because to be fair, he's not really faced any high-level guys, and now he's facing, I don't want to say one of the best kickboxers, but like a pretty solid striker for the featherweight division. So this is going to be the fight where we really see how much potential Kevin Vallejos has. But he's got the hype, 16-1, shit ton of finishes, evidently a very dangerous striker. So I think he's going to just pick apart Giga Chikadze with the boxing, get him against the cage, rough him up in the clinch in the boxing, and get the job done. And I think even with the grappling, I think Kevin Vallejos, if he wants to take the fight down, he can do that as well. Giga Chikadze just got dominated across 15 minutes. Didn't get dominated, but at least for 10 minutes of that fight, he lost pretty convincingly to fucking David Onama. So I feel like if Vallejos wants to take the fight down, he can do that. But regardless, I'm going to go with Vallejos. Hopefully it's a violent fight, but I just rate Vallejos. He's got the momentum, and Giga Chikadze is more than washed. Then we've got Neil Magny letting Yaroslav Amazov debut in the UFC. 28-1 Amazov from Ukraine coming over to the UFC for his big debut. One of the better kind of guys over at Bellator. Now, Neil Magny, he's had such a big MMA career, so I'm not going to break all of it down. I would recommend you go and watch the video I did on Neil Magny about how he's the biggest industry plant in the UFC. It's essentially a deep dive of Neil Magny and how he is one of the biggest industry plants in this company, but he's essentially the greatest gatekeeper in UFC history. Like, just take a look at some of his losses. Like, every guy he loses to ends up becoming something big in this division. Shavkat, something big. Burns fought for the belt, I think, shortly. I didn't fight for the belt after, but I think he fought in a big fight after. Gary, title contender. Protes, title contender. Morales, title contender. Every guy that Magny loses to becomes something big in this division, and if they're not going to be something big in the division, he will beat them. There's something seriously up with Neil Magny, and he's one of the most, I think he is an industry plant for the UFC, but regardless, he's going to be taking an Amosov. Amosov had a massive career in MMA over in Ukraine, a lot of regional promotions, becoming a champion, specifically in Bellator as well. He went over to Bellator, looked really dominant in Bellator, beat Douglas Lima and Logan Stoley pretty dominantly, becoming a champion over there, and he's probably one of the better guys coming over from Bellator to the UFC, and he just got a really good finish on the regional scene as well in his most recent fight. Now, the style of Neil Magny, like I said, greatest gatekeeper in UFC history. If you beat Neil Magny, or if somebody beats Neil Magny, you know they're going to be something big in the UFC, and he's also massively underrated on the ground. I think he's one of the most dangerous ground fighters in the welterweight division. He's got vicious ground and pound, and a lot of his finishes do tend to come from like submissions or ground and pound. He is very dangerous, is Magny, and he's just super durable, but not elite enough for the top dogs. It's a weird thing with Magny that everyone that beats him becomes something big, and then everybody that he beats ends up never becoming something big. So, very durable guy, but just not elite enough for the top dogs. Now, Amosov, he looked extremely dominant in Bellator, but it's Bellator. You know, it's always been the B League as Bellator, and we've seen a lot of fighters this year come from like other organizations and they've flopped in the UFC. So I kind of want to I don't want to, push the hype too much of Amosov, but he's more of a dominant wrestler with solid ground game. He absolutely threw and chucked around Logan Stoley over in Bellator, and I remember Logan Stoley had a bit of hype. He's overall just a well-rounded but forceful grappler. Really good grappling, very well-rounded dude though, and like I said, one of the better fighters coming over to the UFC from Bellator. I'm going to go with Amosov to win this one. Amosov, this is going to be a good fight where we can really see how good Amosov wins, but do not be surprised if Neil Magny pulls the finish off here. Now, there's 3 things that you should never bet on in MMA. Never bet on a women MMA fight, never bet on a heavyweight fight, also never bet on a Terence McKinney fight, but also never bet on a Neil Magny fight, because if there's a fight where Neil Magny's going to pull through and get a finish, I can see it being a massive upset over Amosov. But I'm going to go with Amosov to get this one done. I do think he's got potential, and I think his grappling is really good. I can see him kind of beating Neil Magny on the ground across 15 minutes. And again, Neil Magny's a dangerous ground striker, so I wouldn't be surprised if Magny finds a way to win. But I'm going to trust that Amosov gets it done. 28-1, practically dominated every organization he's been to, dominating Bellator, beat Douglas Lima, beat Logan Stoley, just got a good finish on the regional scene as well. So I think Amosov is going to pull through and beat Neil Magny. But again, don't be surprised if Magny pulls through and gets the win. And then we've got the main event, Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape, the last UFC fight we're going to be seeing for the next 6 weeks. And to be fair, it's a pretty decent fight. Big stakes for the flyweight division. Winner could potentially be fighting for the belt in 2026, or at least, late 2026. And I think it's overall going to be a pretty solid fight. I'm surprised they've never fought before now. Brandon Royval, he had a really good run on the regional scene as well. Beating Charles Johnson, also became the LFA champion. He then gets 2 finishes to start off his career in the UFC, both of them being against decent guys, one of them being against Kape of France. He then gets finished in his next 2 fights by Brandon Moreno and Alejandro Pantoja, straight to the deep end. He then pulls together another 3-fight winning streak, finishing Matt Schnell and Mateusz Nicolau. He then fights for the belt against Alejandro Pantoja, loses by decision to Pantoja, and since then he's made evented twice against Tyra and Moreno, winning both of them until he lost to Joshua Van in one of the best fights of 2025 earlier on this year. Now, Manel Kape, he had a decent run in the regional scene, but he specifically went over to Ryzen. He had a good career over at Ryzen, beating Kai Sakura to become the champion, and also facing Horiguchi over at Ryzen as well. Like I said, becoming a champion. He fights Pantoja in his debut, one of the toughest guys to debut against. Loses to Pantoja, and then loses to Mateusz Nicolau. After that, he puts together a 3-fight winning streak with 2 finishes on there. Calls out Kape of France, has a massive rivalry with Kape of France, which never ends up happening, but he ends up winning again after that anyway. He then has a massive rivalry with Makayev, where he nearly fought Makayev at every single opportunity he had, just to then have an extremely boring fight with Mohamed Makayev, which he lost in. Since losing to Makayev, he's got a good, really kind of in-the-matrix win over Bruno Silva, and a main event against Azwar Mabayev, and beat Mabayev by a bit of a dodgy win because there was some eye pokes involved earlier on this year. Now, the style of Royval, he's one of the best volume strikers in the UFC. When I think of volume strikers, I think of the likes of Max Holloway and some of these other good strikers, but I think Brandon Royval is massively underrated in his volume striking. His volume striking is really good. Elite kickboxing, durable, very good at gas tank, very good shin. We saw that absolute war he had with Brandon Royval earlier on this year. He is just an elite kickboxer, and he's always been one of the most competitive flyweights. He's always kind of been like the second best in this division. Like, every guy he loses to becomes a champion. He loses to Moreno, champion. Pantoja, champion. Van, champion. So it seems like Royval is always like the second best in this division. Now, Manel Kape, absolutely rapid for 125. He's so quick for the division, and he looked massively improved in his last 2 fights. Like, he had an Anderson Silva Matrix type performance against Bruno Silva, where he was just like showboating. It was like watching Dominic Cruz and Cody Garbrandt all over again. He's looked massively improved in his last 2 fights, but he never seems to succeed against the elite. It's always, every single time we give him Manel Kape like a big step up in competition, he ends up losing. We saw this in the Makayev fight. We saw this when he faced Pantoja. We saw it when he faced Mateusz Nicolau. We've seen it when he's faced the likes of Kai Segura and Horiguchi. So it seems like Manel Kape looks really good, but when you start to up the competition, he seems to fall short. This should be such a competitive fight, man. Like I said, 2 of some of the best strikers in this division. 2 guys have been looking sick recently. It is going to be such a good fight, and it is pretty tough to go with, but I've got to go with the boy, Brandon Royval, by decision. I still don't really know how I feel against Manel Kape. Like, he dominated Bruno Silva. He beat Almeida, but there was a lot of eye pokes involved, and he hasn't really got any really good wins outside of that, where you've got Brandon Royval. He's beat Moreno. He's beat Tyra. He had that really close fight with Joshua Van. He's beat Mateusz Nicolau, and I just think Royval's just a little bit better than Manel Kape in the sense that he's got this really good volume strike. He's going to force Manel Kape into an absolute dogfight. I don't think he's as dangerous as Manel Kape on the feet in the sense that he doesn't have as much power, and again, we've kind of seen like a new version of Manel Kape in his last 2 fights, but I've got to go with Royval to win this one. We've seen him in many 5-round fights. He had a 5-round war with Tyra, he beat him. He had a 5-round fight with Moreno, he beat him. He had a 5-round fight with Pantoja, he survived. He just had a 3-round war with Joshua Van, came close to winning that fight. Whereas Manel Kape, I can't say he beats Brandon fucking Royval just based off his last 2 fights where he finished Bruno Silva and got an eye poke finish over Almeida, and outside of that, he's never really beat anybody good. And to be fair, even in that Makayev fight, I know he looked off in that Makayev fight, but Makayev is a grappler, and I know barely anything happened in that fight, but it was pretty much a stand-up fight where he lost to Makayev, so I'm going to go with Royval by decision. I think in a 5-rounder, if I had to trust who's going to win a striking matchup between Manel Kape and Brandon Royval, as good as Manel Kape has looked in his last 2 fights, I've got to go with Royval. One of the best volume strikers in the UFC, and I think it's going to be another performance where we see Royval go out there, get a pretty solid decision, win, outstrike Manel Kape, win the decision, and we start talking about Royval potentially in a title eliminator coming into 2026. But those are my picks for UFC Fight Night, Royval versus Kape. The last card of 6 weeks, it's going to be a long wait, but let me know your thoughts on whoever wins this fight and whoever in your predictions for this card. Thank you for watching.